Welcome back to House of R. I'm Joanna Robinson. Joining me today, a little worse for wear after San Diego Comic-Con. It's the beautiful, luminous, full of mucus Mallory Rubin. Hello, Mallory.
Are you the protector of this pod?
Yes. I'm not going to check with anyone. I'm just going to say yes. Yes. Yes, Sue Storm and I are both ready to protect and defend when we need to. Mallory Rubin here is shining brighter than the Silver Surfer ever could. Here I talk to you a bit belatedly about the Fantastic Four first steps that a lot has been going on. We were at Comic-Con all weekend. Mallory contracted the bubonic plague, and I've got some health stuff going on too, which you can check out on social media if you want to. Because of various health things on this podcast, I just want to say we're going to be banking some recordings. We're going to, try to get out our Stranger Things season 2 rewatch episode that we're really excited about. We're going to try to put a couple Alien Earth episodes in the tank, and then I'm going to be out for a little while. So just sort of like, you won't hear from me as regularly, but if you hear from me and you're like, hey, I thought she was supposed to be resting, we're trying to sort of bank a few episodes. So, to have them ready to go on the feed. But that is the plan. Don't look at me like that with that face, Mallory Rubin.
I just love you so much.
I love you.
I love you so much. You're the best.
I love you. Thank you to everyone. I did post about some stuff that's going on in my life on social media. Thank you to everyone. Incredibly kind words and support. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. And that is what I'm saying. Something that I'm really excited to do when I get back, though, is that I'm head down to Los Angeles to see my beautiful Mallory Rubin in person, and on hopefully she will be over the plague by then.
Yes, my pledge to you is, unlike on today's podcast, to not be coughing every 7 words when I see you in a few weeks.
Promises. Sunday, August 24th.
Yes,
4 p.m. at the Los Feliz 3. Mallory and I have the pleasure, the honor, the joy of showing you Mad Max Fury Road as part of American Cinematheque's Friend of the Fest programming. So that is Sunday, 4 o'clock. We're doing Mad Max Fury Road. We're so excited. Witness us shiny and chrome as the Silver Surfer. Please do get your tickets in advance because we just want to sell this puppy out right off the bat. So it's a limited capacity in the Los Feliz 3. So I just want to make sure that you guys get your tickets when you can. This will be our grand reunion after my absence. So, if you want to witness us crying into each other's arms, that's something you could do for the low price of $15 a ticket and $10 if you're a member, which you should be. I am. I love being a member of the American Cinematheque, incredible organization in Los Angeles. So that is what we're doing. The next day at 10 o'clock in the evening, the Midnight Boys Pew Pew are showing Blade. Sick. Very exciting. Very exciting. Blood Rave with the Midnight Boys.
Oh my God.
So you can get your tickets for both of those showings. Sunday, 24th, 4 p.m. Mad Max Fury Road. Monday, the 25th, 10 p.m. Blade at the American Cinematheque website. So get your tickets now.
Incredible.
Before they are gone.
It was so fun to see so many of you.
Oh my God, at Comic-Con?
Comic-Con, it was like a genuine joy for us and for the Midnight Boys. We all had such a blast. Like, so many of you came to the panel and the meetup. It was just a treat and a joy, and it makes us so happy. So the prospect of getting to see more of you in mere weeks.
And whichever one of you gave Mallory the plague, listen, it was worth it. It was worth it. It's fine.
I was thinking about this. I'm texting you and Arjuna this this exact week last year is when I had COVID for the first time, which I probably got at the Ringerverse live event. And then mere months prior, I got really sick at South by. So I just think I need to start preemptively planning on a sick day or two after going to a live event or a convention. And that's you know what? It's worth it. Worth it, Bob, as they say on Billions.
I was going to say, I suggested to you next Comic-Con that your cosplay be Bubble Boy.
Good idea.
If you come as Bubble Boy, then we can protect you from
what about
the elements.
Purell person?
Yes. Oh, it's like your superhero outfit. We'll get you a cape with a pea on it. Yeah.
Purell
just
at all times.
Dripping with goo. Yeah. Love that.
No free ads.
Listen. You two could be watching this experience as well as listening to it.
Because you wouldn't want to miss that today.
Because we're on video on Spotify, on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. You can follow us on social, Ringerverse on Instagram, on TikTok, et cetera, et cetera. You can see clips from our Comic-Con weekend, the podcast that we recorded down there, et cetera, et cetera. And you can email us always, hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com. Follow the pod if you aren't already. You should do that. And here's your spoiler warning for today as we discuss the Fantastic Four first steps. Medium dive, let's say, so that Mallory survives the end of this podcast. Anything today in the MCU and comics canon is on the table. So Thunderbolts, if you skipped it, tough for you. I'm going to talk
missed
about
out.
it.
Great movie.
It's a great movie. Daredevil, Ironheart, spoiler alert, Mephisto's here. All these things are on the table today as we talk about it. And we might also there's some natural, I think, places to compare this film to Superman. So if you haven't seen the James Gunn Superman, I would just lightly throw a spoiler warning for that on the table as well. Do you think that's fair, Mallory Rubin?
I was told that the entire pod today would be a Crypto Herbie discussion. If that's not the case, then I will be returning to my warm bath.
Okay.
To ease my aching joints.
Okay, quick moral quandary for you. Trolley problem for you.
Yeah.
You're on a trolley.
No, don't do this to me. I can't.
It's hurtling towards Herbie on one track and Crypto on the other. Who do you save?
At the end of the day, neither of them needs me to save them,
Superman's busy.
Crypto's a super dog. Crypto probably has to go save Superman.
Crypto is tied to the tracks with kryptonite rope.
This is quite rude of you to do. I would say take me.
Unplugged.
Take me and save them both.
You throw yourself in front of the trolley to stop it with your body.
Yeah.
With your
I think
disease-ridden.
Spare them both, take me. Crypto's a super dog, so he can handle a lot. Herbie, we could probably rebuild, but I'd rather spare them both. At the Peacemaker panel at Comic-Con, there was a pretty protracted and painful discussion about Eagly versus Crypto, two characters who I absolutely cherish and adore, and the discussion of which of them could kill the other, which I thought was unkind.
Wow.
Unkind.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially because the answer seemed very conclusive from James Gunn's perspective. He was like, farewell, Eagly.
Oh.
Which I don't like to think about.
Okay. Well, hashtag Eagly lives. Let's go now to our Fantastic Four first steps opening snapshot. We don't usually do this, but because I entertained myself writing out the cast list last night, I'm just going to read it out to you as I put it on the doc last night. This film stars Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards / Mr. Fantastic, and I have written Stretchy Smart. Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm / The Invisible Woman, and I wrote Invisible, Pregnant, Force Fields, Future Foundation, Mole Man Pacifier. Okay,
Mole Man spinoff. When?
When exactly? Evan Moss Backrack as Ben Grimm / The Thing, Rocky, Strong, Beard, Yancey Street.
Listen, I know this was supposed to be a very quick run through, and I'll stop after this.
The Thing with the beard can get it?
Yes, yep. Thank you. Thank you for knowing me so well that you could anticipate the comment. You know I love a bearded man, and this was just very important.
Your beloved husband Adam. I felt it. Okay.
Yeah.
Joe Quinn as Johnny Storm / The Human Torch. Copper Tone Babe, fucks, flies, philologist, flameo hot man. That's what I've got.
Very good. Very good.
For Joe Quinn. Julia Garner as Shalabal, Silver Surfer. I wrote Sparkle Tits, but in a feminist way.
Yes. Yes.
Harold phases through things, was a mom, I guess. Okay.
This was also on the Sparkle Tits front, the first thing you texted me after you saw the movie.
Silver Surfer who I've already mentioned
have no
5
notes.
times, is the star of this movie for me. This is a Silver Surfer movie as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, when does Julia Garner not absolutely
Julia Garner never misses,
rule?
but she crushed this. I thought she was so good. Okay. Sarah Niles as Lynn Nichols, and she is listed as the CEO of the Future Foundation. I guess. I don't know why she was acting as like a personal assistant if she's the CEO of the Future Foundation. But Sarah Niles, who you might remember from F1 earlier this summer or from Ted Lasso, is definitely in this movie. Kind of. Anyway.
Not the only part in the movie where you wonder, what else was there that didn't make the final cut? But at the end of the day,
we're going to get to Natasha
better
Lyonne,
than some
don't you worry.
completely cut parts.
Malkovich, we miss you. Okay, Mark Gatiss is here as Ted Gilbert. I have nothing for him. It's fine. Wig watch when, but that's okay. Natasha Lyonne is Rachel Rosman, and I wrote a nice Jewish school teacher because there was not much more to her character, though I wish there had been. Paul Walter Hauser as Harvey Elder / Mole Man. His people are called Moloids.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of questions about that.
My only question is, again, when are we getting a Mole Man spinoff? I thought he was amazing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Paul,
great.
What's so funny is at the, I didn't see Fantastic Four until yesterday. We'll talk about that in a second. So all weekend at Comic-Con, I was just sort of like dodging people trying to talk to me about Fantastic Four. We had a very excited Bad Baby rush from the Fantastic Four screening to our meet and greet on Thursday night. And he ran up to me. He did not enjoy the movie. That's fine. People feel however they want to feel about the movie. But he sort of clutched at me and was like, what they did to the Mole Man was a war crime. And I watched the movie and I said, I don't understand what he meant by that.
I thought what they did to the Mole Man was comedic genius, and I quite enjoyed it. To each their own.
Ralph Ineson as Galactus, big hangry. Matthew Wood is Herbie, which stands for Humanoid Experimental Robot B-Type Integrated Electronics. I wrote Nanny, Chef, etc., etc. And last but not least, Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. Hood stuff, go.
Mask stuff, go. The mask in the hand.
Well, the mask is off. The mask is off.
The mask in the hand is just a delightful little touch.
It has been confirmed that was indeed Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
So
the Russos filming the
Russos filmed
stinger.
it on the set of Doomsday, but that was Downey. So my question to you, Mallory, is how much did you think it cost them to film
Great question.
a shot of his hooded shoulder?
I would imagine a pretty penny. How do you think that day rate compared to 4-year-old Franklin Richards and what he's charging?
Well, he's got the power cosmic, so expensive is what I would say. Who made this film? This film was directed by Matt Shackman, who directed a gajillion episodes of Always Sunny, a few episodes of Game of Thrones, and of course, WandaVision. The screenplay is by Deep Breath Now, Josh Friedman, Eric Pearson, Jeff Kaplan, and Ian Springer. Eric Pearson, really the go-to guy for Marvel. We said this in Thunderbolts. It is still true. Story by Eric Pearson, Jeff Kaplan, Ian Springer, Kat Wood. Produced by Kevin Feige. And I just want to shout out music by the GOAT, Michael Giacchino. Do you want to? I'm not going to make you sing. You're sick. I'll go. Fantastic Four.
That's I think the sad news for me and the great news for literally everyone listening to this podcast today is that for months I had been threatening to basically sing the entire pod to the tune of Fantastic Four. Oh, oh, oh. But now I can't.
Save yourself.
Joanna, this is the 37th MCU movie, but here we are, phase 6.
Thank you for that reckoning. Okay, anything you want to say about the any of the fine folks I listed here? Obviously, we will circle back to a few of them, but anything you want to say on the sort of like who made this front or any of the talent involved?
I thought the cast was dynamite, honestly. I really enjoyed the performances. I thought that they I have a kind of a, I mean, we can save this for more of the overall big picture takeaways or just do it now. But I thought, obviously, like we talked about this from the first trailer onward, one of the crucial elements that they needed to hit, especially because they leaned into it so heavily in the marketing of the movie, it was like the family element. And I think I believed that these people knew each other and had history with each other and had relationships with each other. We'll obviously hit all of them in more detail. I thought Shackman did a great job. Like, we obviously had a great personal enthusiasm for WandaVision. And so I think we were both very excited to see what he would do with this movie. I should say, just as kind of like a blanket caveat, that, normally when we do our film pods, we both try to see the movie multiple times. Yeah. I have only seen it once because I got sick. And the one time I saw it was now 9 days ago. I went to a screening Monday of last week. And so I was really looking forward to seeing it again when we got back from Comic-Con. And so I'm sad that I didn't get to, I always like to, the first time you view a movie, you're just like processing so much. So I was really looking forward to sitting with it for a few days and then going back and seeing it again. But, overall, I had a great time, and I'm excited to dive in. I'm a big fan of the film. I'll save my further opening thoughts for that official prompt. But I thought Shackman did really well. What about you?
We should say we're a little later to this than we usually are, obviously, because of various factors. But this is a divisive film inside of the Ringer family, right?
Is it? I feel like Big Pick is on an island with this one, unless you're about to reveal to me that you hated the movie, which
Amanda
I support
and Sean
you always, if so.
Out.
Yes.
Andy Greenwald and Damon Lindelof
loved it.
In.
All the Midnight Boys loved it.
In. You loved it. I think I am like on a little, to use a Damon Lindelof slash Michael Giacchinoism, on a slight raft, a little bit off of Love Island, which is where you guys are living, but not on like Hate Shore with Amanda and Sean. I'm with a strong not adoration, the way that it's hit some people. I will say, probably the conditions that I watched this movie in did not prime me to fall in love with it as hard as you guys did, because I had a week of people sort of giving me their opinions without me being able to sort of see it first. So that was all sort of rattling around in my brain. Sure. I watched it, as I texted you yesterday, in an completely empty movie theater in the middle of the day yesterday, because it was the first opportunity I had to go see it. And thanks to Alaska Airlines, thanks so much for stranding me last week. But so I imagine seeing it in a packed theater of enthusiastic people, would have primed me to have a better time. And I was just talking, our colleague, Zach Lowe, for reasons known only to him, asked me to come on his basketball podcast to talk about
a crossover event.
To talk about TV comedies. We were talking about comedies and sort of what's happening with TV comedies. And there's this idea of a little bit moving away from the communal experience. Comedies are a communal shared experience. And when you're watching something by yourself or just with a couple people or whatever, it's not the same as when you're in a packed theater of people laughing. There's there's a momentum to that carries you. So I really do think that probably if I had seen this in a full theater with people who were having a ball, I would have had a better time. And I might be with you, with an egregious British accent and a fake tan on Love Island, but I'm slightly out to sea. But that's okay. I still really I liked it. I just didn't love it, and I'm excited to see it again. A lot of people saw this movie. Let's talk about the box office. Right? So 118 million first weekend, 218 million global. So we're already at about 75% of what the previous biggest Fantastic Four film did in the mid 2000s. Far ahead of Thunderbolts, which was a sort of weaker 74 million, and Captain America, 89 million. But we are well below, of course, the juggernaut that was Deadpool and Wolverine, which was 211 million at the end of July last year. That's okay. Right. Same global opening as Superman. Mm-hmm. The budget for this movie, however, was $200 million. So we've got a little ways to go before we're this is, if there's a steep fall off the cliff, which I don't think there'll be because the word of mouth is pretty good. But if there's a steep fall off the cliff, this is not a guaranteed success. But we are off to an incredible, dare I say, fantastic start.
Yeah. I anticipate this movie having a long tail of strong box office showings. It does feel like there's quite a lot of enthusiasm around it, and reviews are good, word of mouth is good. There's, unlike actually the last few blockbusters where there was something massive looming in the immediate next subsequent weekend or 2 weekends after at most, it's I feel like this movie has now a little bit more room to dominate, though obviously it's been an incredible blockbuster summer and there's a lot of stuff still out there. But yeah, I would anticipate that this continued to do quite well at the box office. We'll see. Be interesting to watch.
It's interesting to note that it is the last superhero movie until Supergirl for
That's wild, dude.
a year. It's crazy. I want to shout out months ago, I subscribed to some newsletters from The Ankler, and Sean McNulty does like an incredible weekly box office breakdown with like all these interesting like demographics and stuff like that. It's been really helpful to like helping me understand a bit more forensically the box office. So I just want to shout that out because I like sort of shamelessly lift some of his stats and I don't want to do that without citing my source. So Sean McNulty from The Ankler, recommend subscribing to his sort of weekly box office report. But I thought the demographic breakdown of the audience, 70% male, 30% female over the weekend. And I think they really want this to be like a film for the whole family. It's a PG-13 movie, but like it is, you know, it's not, there's not even a drop of blood during childbirth. So like we did get an email from a bad baby and we've got a few others throughout, but I didn't write this one down necessarily, but she talked about taking her youngest kiddo and like really enjoying watching the film with her youngest kiddo next to her, sort of snuggled up, eating all the snacks, cheering on the good guys, like having a great time. Like I do think this is quite a family-friendly Marvel outing. And so, and as we've seen, you know, you like to talk about how well the live action adaptations of animation films have done this year. Like family-friendly films have been some of the biggest successes at the box office just because you have like multiple tickets that you're buying and it's just sort of like, why would we leave the house for something? Well, to do something with the kids outside the house is a good reason to leave. And so like family-friendly stuff has been doing really, really well at the box office. Yeah. So this could have, if it expands beyond the like 70% white dudes under 35, which is who they hit on the first weekend, into sort of the wider family demographic going forward, this could have quite long legs, long stretchy reedy legs to it.
How many of those families are buying the $80 Galactus popcorn bucket?
Great question. Are you planning to buy the Galactus popcorn bucket?
I don't think so. Don't rule it out. I don't think so. Not because
thus far you only have the sandworm bucket, right?
Yes. I think that while I am quite intrigued by the popcorn bucket boom, and track it with interest, you've recently been in my home. You already knew this from just various photos of various shelves, but you've seen it with your own eyes. I'd say I've maxed out like shelf room for new types of merch. I think I'm going to continue to lean into my established passions on that front, but I don't know. The popcorn buckets are ample. They're large, especially the Galactus one. So like, I don't know that I can introduce this as a new collecting hobby.
Do you feel like if your wine rack wasn't currently full of Legos
and lightsabers,
you might be able to convert it to a popcorn bucket display case?
So Adam and I have talked about like whether we should just actually formally tear that down and turn it into something else because you know, as you know, we're more of our wines are in the fridge family, and so we're not using that space for its intended purpose, just to stack weapons in space. I would like it to be like more of your
armory,
fictional universe armory formally, which like kind of is anyway, but really lean into that. You
could like mount those like various sabers and swords on the wall, in a sort of like medieval way. I love it. Okay, critical response, as you mentioned, it's like pretty positive overall. 86-92 split on Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic 64, Cinema Score A-. I think it's really interesting. You know, you talked a bit about your experience in the theater. I know that you and Charles and the rest of the folks in your fine theater had a really good time. As I mentioned, was the only one in my theater, but I had a fine time in the movies. But I just think it's really interesting. We asked this question about Thunderbolts when we covered Thunderbolts. Like, are we grading on a curve? We really liked Thunderbolts. We would not call it a success, nor would Kevin Feige call it a success. He was like, hey, man, we made a good movie. Nobody went to go see it. What a bummer. But I just do think it's interesting when you think about this year and you think about Superman and Fantastic Four, two fairly sizable hits, we would say, in the superhero genre. Thunderbolt's a movie we really liked that maybe will have a second life in home viewing or something like that. Or if people grow to love the Thunderbolts as they show up in future Avengers crossovers, go back and watch Thunderbolts. But all three of them really seem like they're trying to meet a moment of like disenfranchise, mental emotional distress. These are quite optimistic, or emphasis on community or supporting, showing up for each other, that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to be kind, that it's okay to be all these sort of things and sort of stronger together. And now, of course, these movies are in development for years, so they can't always know what it will be like in our culture, the exact moment that they hit. But I know for Superman, which has had more time to gestate in the cultural conversation, I know that a lot of people have just been really connecting to this like idea of kindness being punk rock, that this, kindness being your superpower is this like punk rock sort of
it's great
idea, and Fantastic Four being so unabashedly a sentimental family film. And then Thunderbolts, if you had seen it, you would know, about mental wellness and support, like we solve everything with a group hug, essentially. Like that is, that is really interesting to me, that those films, 2 out of 3 at least, are hitting with audiences. So,
I think obviously, like undeniably, it's impossible to separate the assessment of and perception of a Marvel movie's success at this point, this deep into the MCU, from its box office showing. Undeniable. But that movie was such a creative success.
It really was.
That, like, I don't know how it is anything but a win. And I find it sort of lament. I think it's good that Feige's honest about the fact that they wanted it to perform better, and, we're hoping it would and it didn't. But if the takeaway from that movie is this didn't work, that's I think really lamentable and a huge bummer, because it was so conceptually assured. And I think such a win in terms of like a really core, this movie I think tapped into a lot of core long-running key aspects and strands of successful Marvel movie DNA, genre specificity, particular visual style, that like ability to look at one frame and know what movie it is, etc. The chemistry of the cast, the ability inside of this is not a Thunderbolts pod, but we both really love that movie. I think the ability for Thunderbolts to just surprise us with character pairings is like such a aspect of I think one of the most crucial aspects of MCU success across our now nearly 2 decades of consuming this thing together. And like, whether the bulk of the people you polled on the streets would understand now what the asterisk meant, I don't know that should matter more than the fact that the movie was good. I think obviously, ideally, you'd like to be able to say both things had a check mark next to them. And like, that's probably, an ongoing question. I think that's obviously also part of the conversation around this movie. On the other side is like, I don't think this is the only reason to celebrate Fantastic Four First Steps. I don't think this is the only reason that the movie worked. But I do think it's like undeniable that the no homework Marvel movie is a logline that will appeal to the masses. Yeah. Unquestionably.
So that's what we want to talk about next, is sort of this idea of like how we got here, right? And as you mentioned, we're in phase 6. Welcome to phase 6.
It's just wild. Yeah. Phase 6 seemed so far away for so long. How?
I know. Here we are. Here we are. You did the math over the weekend, and we realized that I am coming up on my 4-year anniversary at the
October.
Ringer.
4 years since I texted you and said, do you want Venom to be your first Ringer pod?
And I said, no, thank you. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so this is the no homework required effort from Marvel, the anti-Thunderbolts. And like, again, we loved Thunderbolts.
Loved.
If you're listening to this and you didn't watch Thunderbolts in the theater, like, what? Throw it on Disney Plus tonight and watch it. It's like, it's really good.
It's good.
And I'm with you in that, like, I don't want the message to be, we need to do fewer things like Thunderbolts. We need more things like Thunderbolts, really. But we're in a different world in this like no homework vein. We're in a different universe entirely. We're in 828, not 616. And despite the Thunderbolts post-credit, which has a little connective tissue to Fantastic Four, credits finished rolling on this. One more post-credit stinger, but we are nowhere near leaving 828. So whatever that is at the end of Thunderbolts is something that we will have to learn more about in Avengers Doomsday, I suppose. Which I think is interesting. And unlike Captain Marvel, I mean, not that this much matters, but we're way back in time. But I don't know if that time makes a difference if we're talking about different universes. So I sort of went down that path and was like, maybe actually it doesn't matter that it's in the 60s.
I think it does, though, because I think maybe not, because if you're to your point, if you're in a different universe, you could convince us that was any point in time, and the specificity of it just was about the continuity versus the time. But I think to be able to like give us some visual touch points on the art, on the interior design front, or like the fashion front that feel recognizable to us from the 60s, like, you know, much like we're like the TVA looks like Mad Men. But then also when you pan wide in Earth 828's New York, that's a different world quite clearly. And that, you know, was one of the things, obviously, from the first images and trailers that we were so like gripped by, that retro future visual and vibe. And I loved seeing that borne out in full across the whole movie.
Visually, this movie is a 10 out of 10 success. Barring an occasional CGI baby. 10 out of 10 success. Like, really good stuff. We just had to endure a lot of CGI babies this year. After Squid Game,
because of Squid Game, I was like, this baby looks fucking great. I don't know. The Squid Game baby was so like disorienting and uncanny valley to me, and this baby was not. But we should say possibly because of Squid Game.
There's plenty of real babies in this. Yes. But when a baby is being held by CGI confection like The Thing, odds are that baby is not a real baby. Okay. This is not a typical origin story, but we get a lengthy yet accelerated montagified version of the origins of the Richard Storm Grimm super team via the Ted Gilbert TV special. Yeah. What did you make of this section? And is this where you want to talk about John Malkovich being cut out of the movies? Because one of his apes is here, but he is not. Where do you want to... What do you think? What did you think about this approach to we're not giving you a straightforward origin story of the Fantastic Four?
This is, I think, one of the really smart decisions that helped make the movie work for people. We'll talk a little bit more in a second about the prior history of the Fantastic Four on film. Spoiler, it was all terrible until this point. Terrible. All capital letters, underlined, bold, highlighted, make it bounce with one of those new iPhone effects. Like, those movies are awful.
Okay.
They are. And I think that some of the decision to not do... There are some things I like about those movies, namely the first two, Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, and in the 2015. Now I'm jumping ahead, but I do think that the Johnnies, like Chris Evans as Johnny, and then Michael B. Jordan as Johnny, pretty fun. A lot of the rest of all three of those movies.
I like Ewan Griffiths as Reed Richards. Like, I do like that. Oh, you don't?
Wow.
You don't?
No. I'm shocked by that. Interesting. Okay. I think that because a couple things. One, because we have seen Fantastic Four origin stories in films, period, just seen it a lot, it wouldn't have made sense to do it. Mm-hmm. Two, because we have seen it in movies that are, I think, widely considered, maybe some people have affection for them, certainly. Jomi has a great and deep connection to the 05 and 07 movies because they were like formative comic book superhero movies for him. Certainly, there's enthusiasm for the films from some people. But to run back like similar, how did the Fantastic Four become the Fantastic Four beats in this movie when people like don't want to see that again, in part because those movies weren't good, would have been a mistake. But also I think this is just like become a part of the later stages of the MCU. Like, you know, Spider-Man Homecoming, we have a great moment like when you can do what I do and you don't, and then the bad things happen. They happen because of you, and we like understand Peter's history is what we know it to be, but we didn't watch that movie and that was better. So I think this was really smart to like give us a drip and a drop and some glimpses of who they were before through this idea of like the global celebration on the anniversary 4 years into them being the Fantastic Four, the protectors of this Earth, Earth 828, without making us watch all of that. And we still get to feel like, you know, Reed's guilt is very present, like failures of my own, you know, talking about what went wrong in space. It's incorporated in a few ways, but that's not the bulk of the movie. And I think that was really smart. And it also helps establish them quickly where they need to be as like the celebrities of this Earth, the heroes of this Earth. Everybody is walking around like wanting, including Johnny, wanting the Thing to shout clobber in time, and they're dressed up in cosplay, and these people are famous and they're adored. And so like, of course it would be their responsibility to figure out how to beat Galactus. Yeah. I thought this was like a great choice to not give us an origin story again, but to give us like the newsreel incorporation of what happened.
I agree that it was the better choice. And I think it's pretty clear that obviously they filmed the entire, sequence with Red Ghost and all of that and basically cut it down into little clips to incorporate inside of this montage. And that's when we lost Malkovich. And that was sort of like a late in the day choice that they made. But there was initially a whole set piece, adventure mission for them at the start of the movie. I think overall, I like the concept. I'm not sure it was, for me, perfectly executed. I think the pacing of this movie, I think I always felt like I was sort of running to catch up with this movie a bit in terms of the pacing. And I didn't feel like it had some of the things that I love in Marvel movies. We talk about this all the time, like, peanut butter sandwiches or whatever it is. There were these, moments of conversation between, like, let's say Ben and Reed, et cetera, et cetera. But I just didn't feel like we had a moment to catch our breath. And part of that is I think they wanted to give us like a really zippy, fun movie. But I don't know that I felt I leave this movie not feeling the deep emotional investment I would really like to feel in these characters, except for the Silver Surfer. I genuinely am like emotionally invested in Shalabal in a way that I am not and wanted to be in the core family as much as I wanted to be. Like the bantering back and forth, that presentation of family that you really feel is there. I almost feel like they kind of cheat coded it in a certain way. And maybe that's just because as we talked about recently, like we both really respond to TV because we like more time to marinate, and maybe like I don't mind a long run time, and Marvel is really trying to keep it short and zippy. But some of the montagification of this movie left me feeling a bit breathless as I was trying to catch up, if that makes sense.
I think like definitely. I think the early in the film, for me, the counterweights worked really well. Like, opening with, I don't know, maybe this sounds silly to say, but like a bathroom scene between a married couple is just like really intimate.
That was great. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, it's like Sue pees with the door open.
Yeah.
Right? And talks to Reed from the toilet. And like that makes me believe that they've been in each other's lives for a really long time. Like I thought things like that were really effective. Of course, I would have watched an 8-hour version of this. No question. I would have loved that. But yeah, I didn't necessarily, with respect to John Malkovich, who of course it would have been wonderful to see as Red Ghost, kind of like a little bit of an extra fuck you to have the Red Ghost and his super apes in the cartoon and the post-credits stinger. That was brutal.
To have those super apes there, but not Malkovich. And I can understand why, because like if you're not going to do the whole full sequence, then it's almost just distracting to like show us Malkovich.
Yeah.
But not actually use Malkovich. So.
Yeah, for sure. But I think like I felt when I saw the news that he had been cut, I was like, oh, weird. Should I be alarmed? What level? Like, right. But I don't know. Then when I watched the movie, it felt like that maybe was a good decision to keep it tight and keep it focused and not like waylay us with a 4 to 5 minute battle against John Malkovich that, would help us establish how they functioned as a team, what their powers were going to look like in the movie, how this Earth celebrated their achievements, etc. But ultimately wouldn't have necessarily felt like it gave us that in a way other than extra runtime and a little bit of a like, wait, where are we going in the story? So I didn't mind, I feel bad that Malkovich got cut out of the film, but I didn't mind ultimately that wasn't there.
We do just really want to quickly mention, and I'm sure people already know this, but like the Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, is they're such an important character set for the history of the company's brand. Really launched everything that we've come to know about Marvel. So Marvel getting the rights back to some of these Fox properties, teasing it a bit in Deadpool and Wolverine, letting us know that the X-Men movies are coming, but this is really their sort of like, Feige, similar to the efforts around Spider-Man, Feige being like, these characters are in good hands with us. This is what we want to do with these characters. And I would say, most people really feel like they landed it. I do have some quibbles myself, and we'll get to them when we get to character specific conversation. But like the reverence that they're showing, they show all their characters and stuff like that. But I think the stakes feel higher around Marvel's first family. This idea of like, will people even give a shit about the Fantastic Four after, as you mentioned, 3 films of various degrees of success and care and enjoyment from people. There are some contemporary runs of Fantastic Four that have been hits, but I wouldn't say like Fantastic Four comic books are flying off the shelf, here in the most modern era of comic bookery. And so will people care about the Fantastic Four? Opening weekend says, yeah, they care, or they really enjoyed watching the cast on their promo tour or something. Something worked in a way that it didn't click for Thunderbolts. And I think that is really exciting. I just do want to shout out a few comic books that people might want to pick up and look at. Obviously, there's the Fantastic. We could be here all day talking about Fantastic Four comics, and this is a deeply incomplete list. But I want to say that, like, if you look at Fantastic Four, 1961, the first Fantastic Four #1, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, who get a sort of pseudo cameos inside of this movie. We've got 2 young comic book writers shown in this movie at Timely Comics, a Lee and Kirby moment inside of this movie. But this is Marvel's first family versus the Mole Man. So having the Mole Man here in this movie is like, we're going back to the start. We're going back to the 60s. And we're going back to Mole Man, and that's where we're starting. But then Fantastic Four number 48, 49, 50, the Galactus trilogy, is really where the Fantastic Four established its identity. So you've got the coming of Galactus and the arrival of a different Silver Surfer, but the Silver Surfer. In number 49, Galactus, he's here. In number 50, Galactus, he defeated and the Silver Surfer helped. So what, like Mole Man, Galactus, Silver Surfer being the herald and then helping defeat Galactus, that's all inside of this movie. So that's like just the beginning, the core 1961 Fantastic Four. I want to mention Fantastic Four Volume 3, numbers 67 through 70, and then number 500. 2003, written by Mark Waid, art by Mike Warinjo, Carl Kessel, and Paul Mounts. This is Doom versus the Fantastic Four, and Mark Waid, who's one of my favorite comic book writers, like leaps and bounds. I love Mark Waid. Really, really, really good, sharp writing, and then this idea of focus on family. And this has always been core to the Fantastic Four, obviously, but Doom, who we will see encounter the Fantastic Four a bit more meaningfully in the future of the MCU, but like Doom really messing with the Fantastic Four and their conceptions of self and their mental health and all these other things inside of this storyline, and them finding solace and success inside of digging back into that family dynamic is something that is, of course, very integral to this movie. And then Fantastic Four Life Story 2021, written by Mark Russell, art by Sean Isaacsy, is really leans into, it's 2021, but it's how the 1960s and the Cold War really shaped the Fantastic Four. So I think it's interesting to have Fantastic Four comics that were written, conceived of, executed in 1961, the origins, that's important. But to write a book in 2021 to say, okay, how are the Fantastic Fours really a product of the 1960s? What does the idea of like innovation technology, Red Scare, all these other things, what do they have to do with arms race, et cetera, have to do with the core ideas of the Fantastic Four? And so obviously Marvel's decision to set this in a retro-futuristic 1960s for their film, they're like, yeah, we agree that this is core to the identity of the Fantastic Four is the setting of the 1960s, maybe looking at the 2005, 2007, 2015 films and their sort of failure to execute that ideology along with the Fantastic Four. I don't hate the 2005 Fantastic Four, I want to say. And I do think that like the bar was just in a different place, I think. I've just seen a lot far worse comic book movies since the original Fantastic Four movie. So I think it's like competent. Yeah. I don't think it's great. I think it's competent in a way that some of the like, let's say Sony offerings have been like wildly incompetent. Do you know what I mean? So that's sort of
it's interesting. I think like revisiting them because we have we've had a lot of bad superhero movies, but we've had so many great ones.
Excellent ones. Yeah, that's true.
To me, they feel, I think, even like even more of a letdown than they did at the time. Again, I think there are redeemable aspects inside of them and things to like. But when you run through that early comics history and just in general, you know, seeing the Kirby quote during the credits in this movie, if you look at my characters, you will find me. It was like such a lovely touch to include and so emotional. Made me like teary-eyed in the theater.
Especially since the MCU has leaned in so hard for so long on Stan Lee as like, you know, the father of all this. And we should honor Stan Lee's contributions, but to honor Jack Kirby in this way outside of like what Thor Ragnarok did, et cetera, is, you know, really...
Yeah, it was lovely. Yeah. And like, I think, you know, because of that long history in the comics world and how much these characters in various different runs and books mean to so many comics lovers, like, I think obviously just to be clear, if like a single person loves one thing and a movie's bad, that sucks. You don't have to have like vast swaths of super fans for something to be received in that's a success or failure in a different way. But like the inability to make the Fantastic Four work on screen to this point, I don't think we can like overstate that as a thing hanging over this era of comic book movies. Like they just haven't been able to make, I think many Fantastic Four fans would say the best Fantastic Four movie before this one was The Incredibles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just been this missing element in our superhero movie super boom.
I think especially when you have Michael Giacchino here and Franklin Richards being such a key part of this in his like Jack way, The Incredibles influence, which of course were influenced by the Fantastic Four, but I just felt like it was like we were in quite the cultural feedback loop here.
No question. Undeniably so. I think certainly like many of the people, moviegoers in 2025 who are going to see the movie have never read a Fantastic Four comic. Many of them have and have picked up every issue dating back to the early 60s. I think certainly some portion of the audience coming to First Steps will have a lot of familiarity with the more modern canon, like from the Ultimates universe. And I think that if you've read those runs or have any familiarity with them, it's difficult in a way I liked to not be thinking about like what Hickman has done with the characters while watching this movie, to not be thinking about Reed Richards, the maker, or Council of Reeds. Like, I think especially given that the trolley problem in this movie is like my family or the world, thinking about a Reed like the decisions that a Reed Richards makes when his reality is in peril, or what does a council of Reeds look like when they have to make a decision to be away from their families, to give up that kind of like tether to humanity. I think that's another reason why like I felt why the family pull worked a little bit more for me. Maybe like I'm like, oh, I feel like this. I loved that moment. Now I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but like I loved the moment where, you know, Sue was like, "But you thought it."
Oh, yeah.
But you thought it. I thought that was great. Like, what goes through this guy's mind? Like, you love your family, but how are you not thinking about all of these other things all the time? Fascinating.
Yes. But this is almost a Reed I don't recognize, this Reed Richards. And it's not the end of the world, because Marvel has certainly, we talked about this when we talked about the trailer breakdown. Mm-hmm. You were like wondering if the Reed Richards we were going to get was going to be a comics accurate sort of like arrogant asshole genius Reed Richards, and we got an incredibly soft, anxious Reed Richards. And I love a soft, anxious guy. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm all about it. And I had sort of posited to you that like they wouldn't go that direction because we have Tony Stark and we have Stephen Strange, who was essentially just Tony Stark in a cape. And like, do we want another Tony Stark, but just with like graying temples? Like, can we have all of that energy together?
Says no?
Like, honestly, but like, Reed is my biggest question coming out of this movie, and Pedro Pascal is actually my biggest question coming out of this movie. And so, I love a soft Pedro Pascal father figure role. We have talked about this in The Mandalorian. We have talked about this in The Last of Us. So like, this is something like they knew what they were doing, what they wanted when they casted Pedro Pascal here. Matt Shackman has talked about how in his pitch deck for this movie, he included a photo of him with his baby daughter, that his ideas of like what it means to be a father and sort of a softer version of that is key to his understanding of unlocking the Fantastic Four. This is what they decided to do. But it's not the Reed that we've ever seen on the page, I would argue, unless I'm forgetting some obscure version. And again, Marvel has done this before with various characters, that they have sort of reframed their characterization a bit. And then that's now what everyone thinks of when they think of that character. They think of the MCU version. That's fine. Comic book characters should bend and change and stuff like that. But you need to bend and stretch your way into something that, for me, works a bit better than Reed works at the center of this movie. Sue Storm is the like pillar of this movie, and
no question.
Contrary to popular belief, we here at House of Art do love female characters. So like, I love that for us. But I don't know that I needed Reed to be soft buttered quite so much in order for Sue to show up with such strength. Does that make sense to you? I don't know. What do you think?
Of course, yeah. I agree. I think Vanessa Kirby is the lead of the film. Yeah. No question.
Well, and Julia Garner.
Sure, yes. we were going to hit this when we got to Reed, and we're about to. But it's, I think, good to talk about for a second here, because it really connects to what you just said. I think, like, I know you wanted to talk about like that like arrogance, like that, like kind of like Reed's a little bit of an asshole element. And like, I think that for me, Reed felt like a great candidate to carry forward what Tony Stark brought to the MCU in a number of different respects. But I don't necessarily think your points about the I think it's really interesting, like about the softer version of Reed. I am interested on the Pedro Pascal front, like whether he now feels like he needs to take a break from shows or movies where his character has to decide my kid or the world. It's like it's kind of an amazing confluence of stories. But I think like to me, the key with Reed's arrogance to use that word in a pretty like kind of blanket way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where this allows a lot of room, whether it's in the comics or on the screen, for interpretations and different renderings that all feel like true to some essence but distinct, is less about needing necessarily to channel that in some sort of like sarcastic way or dickish sort of sharp-edged way, and more like the burden of being the smartest man in the world has to be felt. And I think this read achieved that. Like, his insecurity and anxiety, I thought were an interesting spin on that. Like, it's not sheer bravado, I'll solve it. It's, oh my God, I have to be the one to solve it. And the idea that his superpower could also be this debilitating burden, and that pressure, especially when the problem of the world connects so deeply to the problem of his family, I thought was really interesting. So I liked that, and I liked that as a way into like, how does hubris manifest? What do you think you can solve? You know, whether or not you're like seeing Reed with bridges and you're like, oh boy, when Reed has a bridge, it doesn't always go well, is not necessarily relevant. I think it's like, when he can't help, like literally can't help, even when the emotion is that deep and the connection to the people in the problem set that sincere, but look at it as like, well, now it's time to sketch this out with my stretchy arms on the chalkboard. What does that do to a person? And like, I think the character allowed us to start asking that question and considering it in a way that felt effective to me as like a starting point. I'm certainly not challenging what you're saying. I think there were many people, this is similar to what Sean was saying. Like, I think that there are definitely going to be people who are like, it's not really my read. I liked it, and I'm really interested to see what they do moving forward. I think in part because like, if this is the read we keep getting in Doomsday and Secret Wars Beyond, I'll be interested in watching that, but also because I think they've introduced enough elements here in this preliminary like film to open a possibility set that we could go a number of different ways with this character. Reed looking at Franklin. Now I'm really jumping ahead. No, medium dives. When we do a medium dive, we go, who knows what happens? Reed looking at Franklin and saying, I don't want you to be like me. Yeah. There's something wrong with me, always has been. Really walloped me, and I thought it's an incredibly good idea inside of this movie. I think it's a really, really good idea. I do want to stay on Reed Corner for a bit and talk about Pedro Pascal, because I had a literal nightmare about this last night. And I want to make it clear that like, I had a nightmare that like Pedro Pascal and I were best friends, and I had to then go on a podcast and talk some shit on him, and it made me feel really guilty. We're not friends. We barely ever met, so like, don't even worry about it. But and I actually have not listened to Damon and Andy or Sean and Amanda or the Midnight Boys Talking Death, because I kind of wanted to like not like show up and like regurgitate other people's talking points. So I know the top line, Statler and Waldorf hated it, loved it, like how people feel, but I don't. I'm hard to avoid the Sean clip talking about Reed on the socials.
This question of like, was Pedro Pascal miscast, which is like the aforementioned social clip. Like, I think that. Speaking of the Ankler, my dear friend Katie Rich over at the Ankler had a piece about Pedro Pascal as like one of our only current movie stars, and she was sort of lining up the case for it. And with love and respect to her, I kind of disagree with a lot of points, because I don't think there should be a huge delineation between TV star and film star, but there's something about Pedro Pascal in the TV world. And not every TV world, because it didn't hit this way with Narcos, but with Game of Thrones and with The Mandalorian and with The Last of Us, undeniable. Even with Mandalorian, where you're just using his voice, charisma bomb, compelling. One of the best things we've ever seen, can make me cry so easily. I'm on the edge of my seat. We feel the lack of him in The Last of Us Season 2. We are devastated in Game of Thrones when he leaves Game of Thrones. Like just electric. And I feel like we have a strong enough case now when we line up Gladiator 2, Materialist, Eddington, and this film for me to say, I'm not feeling that in any of these movies. Gladiator 2, I was like, wow, what a fucking waste of Pedro Pascal. Like, did they not know what they had? But then, like, by the time you get to Materialist, you're like, well, they had to know he's the third lead of this movie. And, like, it's just not what he's capable of inside of this movie. So is he the kind of performer where, though he is unlike so many other of his contemporaries, just compulsively electric, but not, that doesn't translate to every single performance. He's not a chameleon. He's not like a Brad Pitt where he can do like a million different things and they're all like dazzling, however you feel about Brad Pitt, but he does like a million different things. He does a certain thing very well. And I don't think these projects, Materialist, Eddington, whatever, Eddington, a better case, but like are tapping into it the way that I want to feel when I see Pedro Pascal. And so I'm like, is he not a movie star? Is he a TV star? He's certainly a social media star. Like you and I have like our Instagram reels are just like wall to wall Pedro Pascal. And every single one of those clips is insanely watchable. So like this guy has it. He has it. But as Reed, I was like, I'm not feeling this at all. I am not on the edge of my seat when he is here. And I don't know that he's really selling smartest man. Like when you talk about this idea of being the smartest man in the multiverse. Yeah. And burdened by that, anxious because of that responsibility, then I think of get out your calendar, get out your checklist and check it off. I think about a character like Daniel Faraday on Lost, right? That is like an anxious, I'm the only one who knows what's going on here on a sort of like galactic level kind of person. That's a character I can like really understand and get behind. The anxiety that comes with the arrogance, that comes with a huge mistake you made, that comes with the damage that you caused with that mistake. Like that kind of character. And again, if no one watched Lost, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about, Joanna? But anyway, like
that after Thunderbolts.
That archetype works for me. That archetype is great. I can see the execution of that. I don't know that Pedro really knocked it out of the park here. And I'm worried about Reed then being a pillar that they're going to rest on in a major way for the future. If you're like Sue Storm, you know, if they feel like maybe actually it's Sue Storm and they just don't want to say it because of weird incels, then like, fine. I think Vanessa Kirby made a case for Sue Storm as a really compelling, watchable leader. She gets the big damn hero speech. She gets the big damn hero action moment. You know, like we did get some emails from listeners that have some questions about like how centered her role is around her identity as a mother. And, you know, some people view that as a positive. Some people view that as a negative, et cetera, et cetera. We can talk about that a little bit more. But I do think when it comes to like feeling that from Reed, feeling him as the sort of gravitational force of the movie, that is you and I both agree that did not go to him, which is not the end of the world. But I don't know. I don't have the weird thing that Van has about Pedro Pascal. I think Pedro Pascal is like deeply sexy and charming and smart and great at what he does. And I absolutely adore him. I'm just waiting for a movie version of that to blow my socks off the way that I have experienced watching him on television. So that's where I am.
I have not seen Materialist or Eddington. And so I cannot comment. I have commented on multiple podcasts about Gladiator 2, but I put that all at the feet of like other people, and all at the sandaled feet of other people.
But you agree with me that like he wasn't used in Gladiator 2.
Definitely. And that was like one of the real shames of the movie. I find him, and I know you do too, like just so utterly magnetic. And the established House of Arcanon, Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby, two of the hottest people alive. So watching them as a married couple, like gently stroking each other's arms in bed, just like very compelling to me.
Cheekbone to cheekbone.
That's great.
Do you think they go through a lot of pillows, slicing them with their various cheekbones
and
jaws?
Entirely possible.
Just cutting them to ribbon.
Possible. A helpful thing when you're introducing at long last to the MCU a character who for eons, decades on end, fans have been discussing with each other and making jokes about. Well, Reed Richards' stretchy powers, like what's he doing with his dick or his fingers or his tongue. It's very, helpful to believe that the characters in this movie have a exciting and vibrant sex life with each other.
Mallory Rubin, I would just be letting all of our listeners down if I didn't ask you to follow up and elaborate on your thoughts about Mr. Fantastic and a force field wielding invisible woman.
I mean, it just must be a new adventure every day. I'm thrilled for them both. It seems, I did like I thought on the one hand, it's obviously presented in a very tender, delicate, serious scene, like when Sue reveals she's pregnant and Reed's like, we were trying for years.
Yeah.
Part of what's implied there, of course, not implied, actively stated, is we were trying for years, So that's great. What can't Reed stretch? The answer is nothing.
Follow-up question. When we get to the birth scene inside of the Excelsior, right?
Yep.
And he's like, we got to tie you down. Yeah. You need some, gravity. You need to be able to leverage is something that he talks about a lot inside of this movie.
Yeah.
You need to be able to bear down as you're giving birth.
Yes. Big movie for Archimedes. Yeah.
Do you think that they ever... I know that they have some trauma, obviously, around the Excelsior, but do you think they ever took it out on a joyride to see what Zero G would do?
Yeah, pleasure.
For the various,
no doubt.
Yeah, for the various physics, leverage, limbs stretching sort of possibilities of their nighttime
no question
activities.
Reed, obviously, he has a healthy ego. I have no doubt that at some point when he was stretching his dick, he asked Sue to turn invisible so that he could just look at it and admire it. What can't those two get up to? In terms of...
So upsetting.
That's, the MCU after dark.
You're one of one, Mallory Rubin. You're a one of one.
Thanks.
And I appreciate you.
As are you, my beloved, my darling. In terms of the smartest man in the world part, I guess the sheer mass of his achievement is so clear in the movie. Now I think that it makes complete sense to say, and that actually isn't sufficient. It's not enough to just say, look at all this stuff that he invented, and then that tells us that he's the smartest. It's the old show don't tell. Let's feel it more. I think that makes sense. I felt it, first of all, of course, we have the faster than light travel and the Excelsior and all of these things. And I thought that was really nicely balanced across the inside of the Fantastic Four, where they all have their things that they're doing. And, I love something we'll get to Johnny and Ben more, but obviously everything that Sue is doing with the Future Foundation and Johnny's kind of desperation to crack the language puzzle because he's I want to do something too. And then you're you're an astronaut. They're all geniuses, right?
Yeah.
The fact that Reed is talking about dimensional planes and parallel Earths and has this advanced understanding in the 60s of the multiverse was, I thought, obviously very deliberate just in terms of where we are in the story, but also, another way to kind of signal to us the depth of his scientific, not only invention, but inquiry, which is certainly an important thing with the character, the bridges. On that front, I meant to say this earlier, but I think... I'll come back to how that manifested with Reed in the movie in a second. I did think that to your point from earlier about the Thunderbolt stinger, I'm not implying everybody felt this way, but I definitely was they got me with that. And then this movie, I thought effectively subverted my expectations where I just felt okay, either
this Earth is going to have to be
toast.
Destroyed.
Yeah.
Right.
Either Galactus wins or something that the Fantastic Four does causes an incursion. And
and that might still happen.
Could still happen. Or they just are, Doom takes Franklin and they're heading to find him.
How would you feel if we went through all of this to save 828 and then it got destroyed in Avengers Doomsday, early on or otherwise?
I I can't say I have a ton of I'd be sad, but like I don't know that I developed that we spent time with many other characters.
You love Mole Man.
That's I would mourn Subterranea and Rachel, certainly. Yeah. But like, okay, part of the smartest man in the world thing to me in the movie was not just like faster than light travel. It's like the entire world has somehow been convinced, this is how you know it's the 60s and they don't have TikTok yet, to power down. Reed is still like lights on. Everyone else's lights off, Reed is lights on, because he's like, and this builds toward a moment where he's like, I thought it was very sweet when he's like, I'm not going to look anymore. I'm going to let you tell me who you are to Franklin. But like until the very last second, he's like, I have to scan, I have to look, I have to solve, I have to hunt. This anxiety that is permeating not only about are they going to save the world, but like what might be wrong with my child. I thought this was very effectively rendered. Yeah, in like a multifaceted way. On the one hand, and I was going to save this from when we talked about Sue as a mom, which I do think we should talk about more later. But like on the one hand, I think just like Reed and Sue being really worried about their kid. Obviously, the specifics in this film are not relatable to other people. Galactus wanting to take your child so that his hunger can be sated at last. Yeah. Not relatable. But this like, is everything going to change question? Or like, what might be different about my kid question? Like to take people with super worries and then give them normal, relatable worries, I found like really winning. And then for Reed inside of that to be like, I'm not just like, I'm having a kind of like mental, emotional, spiritual, existential relationship to the idea of fatherhood. I cannot for a moment turn off my scientific brain. I have to think about my own kid as another equation. I thought was worked for me as a way to show us that Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards can't turn it off. And that sometimes that leads to like, in part because he thinks he can't. He's like, if I don't, who will figure it out? And so sometimes that leads to like a breakthrough. And sometimes that leads to like abject catastrophe. And I think
it would have been nice for us as an audience to see more wins from Reed inside of this movie if we're to buy, you know, this, like, it's fine to have some failures. We love a failure, but like there are so many losses of execution of ideas for Reed, so many like fuck ups that I'm like, I need to counterbalance that with some wins.
Well,
right?
And we didn't pod about Superman together, but you know, a movie that I loved, as you know. So this was not how I actually liked this part of it, but certainly a complaint that people had about Superman was like, Superman got his ass kicked a lot. It's interesting. I think this kind of connects to your earlier point as well of just like a little bit of like a through line of the moment of like showing us some of our characters in a little bit more of a vulnerable position. I found that like really compelling in Superman. But yeah, it's like different, no question. And I think it's like we could get a movie where Reed is like, I'm solving it all the time. We could get a movie where Reed is like, I feel like I have to solve it all the time, but I'm not. I'm open. I think like this obviously does connect to Sue and like the fact that Sue is the one who really cracks it in a number of different respects, which I thought was like, I don't know, I guess I'm keeping in mind when we talk about this movie and in general, the grading on a curve thing, both inside of the MCU compared to the other movies in this character set. But I will say part of what I really don't like about the prior films is the portrayal of Sue, which is
absolutely.
Like
this is night and day,
brutal. And
I would take
like
this
so welcome.
I would take this any day of the week.
Rise of the Silver Surfer being like fucking 80% Sue Storm, like, but like my wedding, just like so rough.
Yeah, you're really right about that. Okay, okay. I do want to get to this email we got from our listener Esme about Reed and some of his decisions because a moment. Again, I did not read any of our listener emails until I saw the movie, but I did see an email we got that was said like in defense of Reed's decision too, and then it like cut off. That was the subject line, and I was like, huh. And then I was watching the movie, and he starts giving the press conference.
And you're like, it's got to be that.
Oh, it's definitely this. Anyways,
let me just say before you even read the email, this is not one I have a defense for. It's not
horrible. Okay, anyway, so Esme says, Like so many when I first watched this, I was baffled by why he would tell these people this huge bargain they declined. Why does the world need this info? Also, the rest of the team just lets him deliver this news. Why wouldn't they jump in to stop him? But upon second viewing, I realized how transparent the Fantastic Four are to their world. These are people who, for the last 4+ years, have been living every single moment in the public eye, news programs, magazine articles, ad campaigns, cartoons, comic books, educational program, etc. People making bets about Sue's pregnancy, Ben and Johnny being on the data game, which was a deleted scene that they put on Marvel socials recently, etc. Somebody has to do a piece on how arguably the Fantastic Four are the first parasocial team of all the MCU heroes, regardless of living in a seemingly pre-internet world. On top of this, they are diplomatic leaders. Sue is a key part of the Future Foundation, which in the film looks like their world's version of the UN. I guess that they even give press conferences after every villain they defeat. They've invited the world into their home and feel the world is their family and vice versa. The world being part of their family is something they mention, especially when Sue introduces Franklin to the angry crowd later on. So, of course, Reed would share this news about Galactus, even though his face clearly telegraphs he's worried to share this and worried about how to defeat Galactus. Of course, the team would think the world would sympathize with them, or at least the world wouldn't react as poorly as they did. 828 World is family, and family should understand this decision. And then Esme, again, is part of a much longer email, but when she's talking about this idea of the world agreeing to turn off the lights and everyone has to do it in order for this to work. And then it winds up not being necessary anyway. But anyway, as I says, it further shows how the world really loves the Fantastic Four. The fact that the entire world is mere days, mobilize their resources and labor for this plan without much question, and so soon after Galactus plus Franklin's situation is staggering, including roping in frenemy Harvey Moleman. It shows how different 828 is from 616, main MCU, with 828 being a semi-utopia. Again, maybe that is lazy or poor writing or a convenient plot piece, but I'm choosing to be more optimistic about it. So this idea that like the whole world would, I mean, our world would never fucking do this, but the idea that they live in a world where they've demilitarized everyone but Latveria, I guess.
Latveria,
empty seat from
that
Latveria.
That was great. I
really
loved
good.
The pan and the empty Latveria
really good,
seat.
but like
great.
The entire world has been convinced to demilitarize. Like this super family and their super heroic deeds have impressed the world so much that the world is like, okay, sure, we'll turn off the lights for you. Something, again, our deeply divided world would never. There's not a single person, not even, I believe, fucking Taylor Swift could get the world to turn off all of their devices for however long, right? But I do like this idea that like 828 in 1965 is a utopian world of tomorrow. You know, we put our trust in you, sort of thing, which is a dangerous prospect, but an interesting one, you know?
Great email. Fascinating to think about this. It's funny. I think the point about the distinctions between 828 and our world are, you know, very clearly rendered and present. I did think that there's like a commentary at play, though, that no matter how different the worlds are, they're the same, because at the end of the day, people will turn on you in a dime, no matter how much you've done for them. Like, you know, that was
but then one good speech can get them back on
True.
your side.
They're easily swayed, the people of Earth 828. Here's my message to Reed Richards. Keep fucking with your long dick. You're doing great. However, it is okay to lie. It actually is okay to lie. Consider the interest of your family.
Or
consider
just
the interest of...
omit. There are things you can omit.
Yeah. Like, filibuster a little. First of all, you could just be like, we're tired.
We met Galactus. We haven't figured out how to defeat him yet.
Spin doctor it, right? Like, come back. You know, we're gone for a long time. We had the baby in space. I'd like to remind you guys that I'm the smartest man in the world. And so I was able to track Silvertit's energy signal and confirm what happened to those other planets and validate that this threat was real. And then let me tell you something. We fucking found Galactus. We did some boots on the ground research. We did some space boots on the ground research.
Great.
And now we're back to craft the rest of our plan.
Yeah.
Got to go change a nappy. We'll see you later.
End of.
That's it.
But I like that. I do a little bit like this idea that they were like I mean, I don't even think Steve Rogers would be this naive, but that it was a naive move. That he naively tells them and expects, because historically they have been, expect that they'll be on his side.
I think it struck me as part that for sure. And then part Reed Richards is not accustomed to failing. And so he almost couldn't help but be like, oh, we didn't. Like, it almost just came out because he's like, I usually stand here and I tell you how great I am.
That would ring more true for me if like his biggest failure hadn't already happened, which was the incident that led to his entire family being, mutated by space.
Is it a failure, or this is where I'm real team Johnny. It's like pretty cool to get to be a superpowered being.
Let's move forward so we can get to Johnny, who we have not spent any time with. Anything you want to say about our guy Herbie, who I wanted to mention here under the Reed umbrella? There was a photo op at San Diego Comic-Con to pose with Herbie. How'd that go for you, Mallory?
Texted you in real time a photo where it said reservations closed.
Yeah, and I don't mean to kick you when you're congested, so I'm sorry. I just thought that everyone should know that you deeply wanted to.
You had given me, in some specific ways about specific things, but also in a more kind of like holistic fashion, one piece of advice for Comic-Con, and it was this: get ahead on the planning. If there's something you want to do, make sure you know what time it is. If you need a seat, book it. Herbie, I somehow missed this one. We hit a lot of what we wanted to hit, but the gasp of joy and then the just
crushing defeat
sigh of realize when I saw that line, and then realizing that I could not get into the line, I could not enter the line. I hadn't considered this. Unlike Reed Richards, who says in this movie, I don't dream, I don't wonder, I invite the worst possible thing into my head. I had not considered this possibility. And so I was frankly floored by it in real time and texted you in deep distress. It's very sad. I thought Herbie was great. We had already seen, obviously, like a very ample portion of this family cooking dinner scene with making the sauce and everything. But I still found it, even though we'd seen so much, just so sweet and charming in the movie. I thought Herbie was really cute. I did not like seeing him in harm's way in the climax of the film. It was this classic on-brand Mal bullshit, but I was like, mostly, frankly, because Franklin Richards, one of the most powerful beings in the history of Marvel. Franklin's going to make it out of the movie, but I was not so sure about Herbie, and so I was deeply distressed. One of the single best touches in the film is the recurring through line of Johnny scratching Herbie's head like he's a pup, a little pup or a little kitty. I'm really excited to talk about Johnny. I thought that was just so sweet and so charming. I thought you were going
to say when Herbie is doing, I don't know, A2A's version of Itsy Bitsy Spider for Franklin, before Galactus shows up. Herbie's just above Franklin, just doing little claw Itsy Bitsy Spider stuff.
Itsy Bitsy Spider went up the water spout.
See, your singing voice is fine. Okay, let's talk about Sue. Mm-hmm. I do want to get to Ben and Johnny, so let's talk about Sue for a bit.
Yeah.
I don't need to go into detail. I will just say we got a very long email from our listener Faria, who was just a little upset by how goo-less the space birth scene was. But even this listener admits they did not really want to see the blood and various fluids flying around in 0G as Sue is giving birth. But just in case you were watching this movie and you're like, wow, I could give birth in 0G. No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't. And it's absolutely insane that the baby comes out and Ben's just zip zop with some shears and that's it. That's not how that goes.
Zip zop. Listen. An episode of The Pit, this wasn't a show I've now seen.
You have seen The Pit.
Yeah. Whew, boy, was that good. You guys did not lie. That was dynamite. On the one hand, the fellas all dive right in. They're not brr.
Yeah.
The female
business end first, right
They're
away.
Ready. Yeah. On the other hand, perhaps, I did think about this while watching. I was like, are we about to see the placenta, floating around in the middle of the ship? We did not. Can't say I'm surprised by that. in the MCU. However, would have been.
I will say, of all the incredible things that Sue Storm accomplishes in this movie, including literally killing herself in order to shove Galactus into a portal, I would say her ability to do some like wordplay quipping about dilation while she's in labor.
That was great.
Superhuman. Superhuman
really, really
Sue.
good. Genuinely impressive. Do you think that Sue was like pretty sure that in about, I can't remember the timestamps on the movie, about an hour and 15 minutes, these guys aren't going to be able to figure out how to put a car seat in, so maybe I will make all of that invisible.
Oh, I love that. This is a great solution. She's just going to she just invisibilized her fluids. If that were the case, and I do think this would be family friendly enough. If we're making all of the various fluids that are involved in birth invisible, I wouldn't mind seeing Johnny get hit in the face by a floating invisible placenta or something like that. What is that?
That'd be great.
And Sue's just don't worry about it. Okay. How well does this film do in creating Sue's identity outside of the idea of mom? Does Sue Storm's sister register for you? Wife register for you? Future Foundation leader register for you outside of this montage? We got, I would say the majority of emails we got was about this topic from people.
Tell us.
Our listener Peyton said, I think the fact that this characterization was clear and Vanessa Kirby was great in the role was what made me feel so disappointed that, if I'm remembering correctly, every single scene she was in the film was about her being a mother. This movie was absolutely made for me, an optimistic MCU enthusiast, a lover of mid-century aesthetics and retrofuturism, a fan of Pascal, Kirby, and Moss Baccarat. Not you, Joe Quinn, I guess.
But Joe Quinn, jeez.
But I had a sinking feeling in my stomach ever since folks pointed out in the first trailer that it seems like Sue's pregnancy and motherhood would be a defining plot point. And I get it. Family is a big part of the Fantastic Four dynamic, and motherhood can absolutely be part of a rich and compelling character arc. But in this case, it felt like that it was the arc. Every time Sue showed up, it was in service of reminding us she's a mom or soon to be one, or set up how others, especially Reed, were reacting to that. Motherhood is an important part of so many women's lives and hasn't really been explored in the MCU much before. But there was so much potential to explore her leadership, her science background, her relationship with the rest of the team, and all of that took a back seat. What do you think of that?
Let me say at the start, I want to be careful here to not dispute any of the points in the email. I think this is a personal read for everybody. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind on this. I actually was worried that I would feel this way about it. Mm-hmm. Not just from the trailers, but as we were going through the movie. A big part of this is that I had no idea that this movie was basically going to be about Franklin Richards.
Right.
None.
Right.
And it was we talked about this, I think for a while. I don't know if they just were considering keeping this completely a secret and then decided that they should make it part of the tease. But
you were marked when Franklin showed up.
Yeah. It's they're telling us it's not a mystery. Franklin's in the movie. This is a huge deal to introduce Franklin Richards in the movie. It was maybe and maybe this had come out sooner and I just hadn't seen it till a couple days before, but it was a couple days before the movie that I saw a clip that was Galactus wants our kid. And I was like, why are they putting this out before the movie? It seems like that's what the movie's going to be about.
Right. Okay.
So Franklin is the driver of the plot. Galactus wants Franklin to replace him. Mm-hmm. Franklin is key then to driving the plot. Franklin is key in terms of the emotional journeys of the character. Franklin is the centerpiece of the story. Okay. As we already discussed, Sue is the lead of the movie. And so mother and child and father and a child as well are incredibly centered throughout the entire story. This made sense to me and I thought worked well in a story so oriented around family as a strength. And I think in part because of that, and also a couple other elements that I'll hit in a second, it didn't tip to me into the area where I was worried it might, and felt more of a embrace holistically of family as a source of strength, family as a tether to your humanity, family as an anchor to what's important, family as a source of strength as powerful as your actual superpowers. But on the front of actual superpowers, I thought it was like crucial. And ultimately to me, like, I actually found this like kind of like inspiring in a way that I was like a little bit surprised by. Like, Sue doesn't actually get sidelined at any point. Like, she's like...
Right, she's on the mission when she's super pregnant and no one's like, you should stay behind because you're super pregnant.
She suits up. She goes to space. She's there at the head of the Future Foundation. She's like there when they're discussing everything, when they're crafting, when they're strategizing, when they're figuring out the plans. Now, like, to be clear, focusing exclusively on motherhood is wonderful. And I think that is, if that's a choice people make, that's their choice to make, and is great. I'm not implying otherwise. But I think the fact that this Sue in this movie, is it a movie at the end of the day that a bunch of dudes made and they're like, mom strength? Yeah.
Mom, am I right?
Yes, it is.
Mama bear energy.
Yes,
she can lift a car.
We just talked about this with
28 years later. Yeah.
That's, I think, clearly true. But like, I think the fact that Sue is presented to us as a character who does it all, who like can basically find like work-life balance. I was like, I think that's cool. Like, I don't know. I think maybe this is like oversharing, but like, I think about that. I don't have kids. I have a cat who I treat as my human child, but I don't actually have a human child. I think about that a lot. Like, kind of like, oh God, I have so much anxiety about how I would balance all that. And I don't know, like, I thought this was like, that part of it actually like worked quite well for me. I think also Sue was more assured. This connects to what we were just talking about with Reed, like presented to us as more confident and more assured that they can find a solution, that they can find a way forward, which I liked. And yeah, again, like I said earlier, I just think the fact that all of the characters in a way are kind of like grappling with the question of how expanding their family is going to impact their life, and balancing their joy and their hope and their desire with their anxieties felt like real, like, that's a thing that people think about and wonder about. So I actually, like, I was really concerned about this, but it ended up working for me. I totally recognize why that would not be the case for other people, though. What's your feeling on this, Joe?
Yeah, I would say it like pinged a little for me, but did not put me off for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. Like, the fact that Sue was just like in the mix constantly was really cool to me. I think your idea of like, this is a film that is just like orbiting the idea of family would work maybe even a little bit better for me if that were also true for like Johnny and Ben. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Sue Johnny was the thing. Johnny and Reed Ben actually are like for such crucial relationships. I wanted more of both of those.
I really agree. And I think Ben, unfortunately, Evan is so good. And I think the effect is really good. Like, I think he's so good. And I think, you know, that moment from the trailer hit again for me in the movie when you see his reflection and he, you know, the body horror that Josh Trank really leaned into for his horrible Fantastic Four movie. But like this idea of like Ben Grimm as the one member of the team who like not only was, you know, mutated, but like mutated in a way that is physically apparent to everyone.
Right.
For him to look at his own reflection in the TV screen and then to have it go black and then you see his rocky visage in the window, I thought was really good. I love Natasha Lyonne so much. Poker Face season 2, shout out. This is just like again, to our question of like what was cut out, like this just feels so anemic. This I feel like Rachel,
we lost like 15 minutes of the storyline, right?
Just insane to me that like at this point I'm like, why is this even here? Like, you know, that's what a few of the vestigial remains of stories felt like. Why are you even here if you're only going to give me this much of you? I did find it emotional, you know, like Ben Grimm's Jewish identity is an important part of his character. This idea that he goes to the synagogue in this moment, you know, when the Silver Surfer says, hold your loved ones close, speak the words you've been afraid to speak, rejoice and celebrate, all of that. And he like seeks out Rachel, seeks out the synagogue. I think conceptually and emotionally, that's a great idea. But because it was just built on such like matchsticks and straws, it just doesn't wind up hitting. What does wind up hitting for me with Ben is like, actually kind of the way that he talks to Sue. Like the Sue, and and there have been plot lines in the comics of like Ben fancies Sue or whatever. But like to me, it felt more familial. And I think I was hoping for a little bit more because the baby comes so early in the story. I think I was hoping for a little more. Yeah. Thanks so much for like beaming your sure to be fine radiation rays into her pregnant stomach. But like Ben and Johnny as uncles, like we get this slapstick thing with the car seat at the end, which is like really funny.
Was funny.
Annoying to me because they're on the clock for an emergency. I was like, this would be so much funnier if it were happening at a point when they like aren't literally trying to run towards an emergency to like save the day.
Well, brought to you by the family that came back from space and said, we didn't,
But like the 3 men and a baby or Full House, if you prefer, opportunity for Uncle Ben and Uncle Johnny, I feel like was really left on the table. And I would have loved to see more of that opportunity for them. And then for Johnny as like the fuck up younger brother or whatever. And then he has something to prove with this linguistic homework assignment. Like that's sort of there in a threadbare sense, but I really feel like they could have landed that a bit better to help us understand Johnny's motivation beyond just like Silver Surfer. She's pretty mysterious and hot, isn't she? I agree, Johnny. I really agree. I really agree. But if we could orient that family, that story around a family concept rather than like Ben fancies Rachel and Johnny fancies Shella Ball and like, don't we all? But like, what does that have to do with your sense of belonging inside of this family? Or, so if it has to be the singular preoccupation for Sue and for Reed, then I feel like it has to be a singular preoccupation for everyone inside of this movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So definitely. I'll stay on Ben for a second and then hit Johnny. Because I'm inclined to agree with you that the Rachel stuff is like almost it feels like a tease because it's so limited that I did wonder and I'm glad that Natasha Lyonne wasn't cut out of the movie, but I was like, if they were cutting characters and full out of the movie. But I ultimately landed on, I'm really glad it's here. Even I certainly wish it had been more present. But on the because on the family front, but also on the how have we changed front, and these things are inextricable from each other with the Fantastic Four, because while obviously their histories predate their development of anomalies, there is a, and again, we've already talked about on this Earth 828, like wide-armed, welcoming embrace by the masses. But even so, there is an otherness, right? There is like something defines us that does not define other people. And so there is in the team, in the names, in the literal branding, fucking these suits looked great. Like the lighter color palette, fantastic. So the reason that I was glad, in addition to the fact that just even a moment with Natasha Lyonne is a blessing. Yeah. That I was glad it was here is because Ben is like in his old neighborhood, right? So he's there to pick up the black and white cookies. Yeah,
we're on Yancey Street. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's hamming it up for the kids and lifting the car and all that. That's all great. But just this that sense, because I think I was glad ultimately that the movie didn't, because this had been so heavily mined in the prior deeply flawed films, that the thing is not that I wouldn't have been interested in seeing it, but I think that we were able to absorb this clarity via how we watched Ben in that television set scene, or just looking at other people existing together. Moving through the streets you used to inhabit, moving through the shops that you used to just go into as a person who looked like Richie on the Bear. And now you feel like you have to wear a hat and a trench coat because of how altered you are. And that makes you feel like you're separate not only from these 3 other people who are your family now in a number of different respects, but from the person you used to be. Like, it gave us access to that aspect of his psyche without having to give us the exact same beats of Ben being like, change me back. Change me back. You're supposed to be the smartest man in the world. Figure it out. Like, that didn't happen in this movie. I thought that was a good choice. So I would certainly have liked more time with Ben. I thought that was what I craved the most. And certainly, again, the history with him and Reed and the sibling relationship with Johnny and Sue. I thought Johnny was, to me, Sue is the lead of the film, which was a surprise to me. But Johnny was the, like, relief of the movie to me, because, and we established House of our canon that Joseph Quinn is a legend here. Like, we know that.
And unlike Pedro Pascal was used well in Gladiator 2, I think.
Yes, he was. Definitely.
It's so funny. Rob Mahoney, Rob and I have been like tracking very closely this Beatles movie because it's just a shared passion of ours. And Steve Ullman, Rob Mahoney, and I basically have a group text that's just about the Beatles movie. But like Rob's like comes back from Fantastic Four. He's like, I'm worried about George. I was like, you cannot judge Joe Quinn based on Johnny Storm. Like, you can't.
No, judge him based on Eddie Munson.
Yeah, you gotta go watch Stranger Things, and then you can talk to me about it.
Wait till you see him shred on that guitar. As I already said, I just think that, like, Chris Evans and MBJ as Johnny were like the two most successful parts of those prior movies. So, like, Johnny was the character that worked the best in the prior movies. And I didn't know exactly how this Johnny would work. I also thought just like it was your wig watch is your thing, but like the wig and like the contact lenses and stuff gave me the most like, is this going to look right? Anxiety just watching the trailers. But I settled into that pretty quickly. I thought that he was great. Ultimately, unsurprisingly, he's a delightful performer. Look, I like Johnny likes women and Johnny likes space, and now there's literally like a naked hot space chick.
That was good.
No notes. I have no notes.
I would say I get it. Johnny likes space is like maybe one of the biggest laughs of the movie
very
for me.
Genuinely very funny. Imagine if you'd been watching it with other people laughing around you.
What a joy. What a treat. I do think he benefits greatly from his storyline being wrapped up in The Silver Surfer, which I do want to say, I've mentioned it a few times.
Yeah.
Julia Garner, the physicality of The Silver Surfer, the way that this character is rendered, surfing the lava,
dude,
surfing everywhere,
sick.
like all like this is going to be an obnoxious flex, but having just come back from Maui, but like I've spent a lot of time recently staring at surfers, like actual surfers, and I spent hours one night just like we were just sitting watching the sunset, and then watching all these surfers, like, you know, on the various breaks, and like so to watch her nail that physicality. To do so much with such an austere and like effects laden character, and you know how previously in the MCU, I mean there are exceptions like Rocket is a great example, or Groot is a great example of successful, but there have been many characters in the MCU who have just suffered, many great actors who have suffered under, I would say, once again, like Lee Pace just under a lot of makeup, Chris Eccleston under a lot of makeup, like unable to really sort of come through. I can't believe I gave you that opportunity.
Thank you.
Failing to really break through. But Julia Garner, and like I'm not the world's biggest Ozark fan that has ever existed. I did love her in The Americans. She's great on Ozark. It's just not my favorite show I've ever watched, but like she's just so good.
Yeah.
And the Silver Surfer's arc of like, I come as like a prepackaged TikTok meme of I herald your end, et cetera, like all of that is so good. The softening, the shot of her crouched over her surfboard with Johnny sort of like, you know, Sistine Chapel-esque sort of reaching up for her with the sun setting behind the earth, behind them.
Gorgeous.
A spectacular shot. So and then I just found her arc. I mean, the flashback to her, like, and she was a mom and a scientist in flowy, like, clothing, like, whatever, that's fine. But, like, just her arc and her showing up to knock him out of the way and then, like, have her big damn hero moment. Like, that was just, like, great fucking stuff, honestly, from this movie. Johnny and Uncle Johnny being ready to sacrifice himself and then sort of being knocked out of the way for that. Like, I thought that worked. I don't think that, like, I think if I'm ranking, like, the things that are most successful in this movie, Johnny maybe is not as high for me as he is for you, but I think because he's so associated with the Silver Surfer thing, which was, like, end to end so successful for me, he really benefited from that. And I think, like, Sue Storm just being sort of, like, rock solid inside of this movie is so key for it to not feel like it's so soft and fragmented around the edges. So, yeah.
Listen, I won the Ringer superhero draft, I think for a number of reasons, but I think the main reason was when I drafted in the Cosmic Powers category in the last round, Silver Surfer. So I have always, since then and before then, had a deep connection to and gratitude for the Silver Surfer.
Truly one of your finest hours, the superhero draft.
Thank you. I thought, I was looking in the trade, when Shalabal became Galactus' herald. I was looking are we going to see Norrin? Are we going to get Norrin Rad somewhere? We didn't. Interesting choice. But I thought everything with the Silver Surfer was awesome. Just, like, really great. I kind of, like, couldn't believe how good the effects were. I mean, I really co-sign what you said about the physicality of the movement. I have not recently had the pleasure of watching actual surfers in Hawaii, but I did recently watch season 3 of 100 Foot Wave. So
it's the same.
It's the same thing.
It's the same.
We've both been watching a lot of surfing lately. I thought that lava sequence was, like, just kind of utterly visually arresting and, like, a sort of astonishing.
And
it was so cool.
Like, Julia Garner has talked about, like, both wanting to study the physicality of surfers, but also just sort of, like, statues, you know what I mean? So just, like, her posture.
Yeah.
I'm going to think about her posture every time I get on the reverse fly machine at the gym, just sort of, like, as, like, every time we use that machine, I think about, like, my posture is going to be so much better when a refined lady, like, whatever, but because we spend so much time hunching, but, like, her like, the literal definition of statuesque, just sort of, like, it was just a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, and, like, just her face was, like, so expressive through the effects. It was really great. The, like, Silver Surfer, whether Norrin or Shalabal, like, turning on Galactus to ultimately align with humanity in Fantastic Four is not the newest story beat, but I thought it was very effectively rendered here because, to your point from a couple minutes ago, I just thought the Johnny Shalabal stuff was great. Like, it was just so delightful to watch, and it had that ideal mix, I think, of, like, humor and heart. There was a lot of charm. There was some kind of, like, zippy, quippy energy. A lot of the Johnny-centric jokes come from that storyline. Like, he's so desperately trying to, like, figure out the puzzle of the records and the language so that he can, like, decode and understand. And, like, you get something like the laugh of Ben being like, how he barely has a grasp on the English language. Quite rude, but pretty funny. I laughed. Again, Johnny's very smart. Mm-hmm. But what would it be like to be, like, really smart, but then you're around those other people and you're like, do I feel really smart? I got to prove every day that I'm really smart. So you have the humor, but then you have something like, I don't know, like, the words you said to me earlier, what did they mean? It's a blessing. It means die with yours. Like,
it's good.
Die with yours. That was just, like, gave me a little chill.
It's good. It's real good.
That was lovely and, like, really deeply evocative and more effectively than ultimately glimpsing, like, I'm holding hands with this small child.
On a beach stuff?
Yeah, gives us a sense of history.
That's some real dead dog wife flashbacks, though, honestly. Could not have been more dead dog wife flashback.
Yeah, but that line, like, that exchange gave us a sense of, like, what would it mean to what does it mean to die with yours? But what does it mean to not die with yours? What does it mean to sacrifice yourself to preserve their continued life and then be apart from
all
them?
of these other worlds.
And then condemn all, and like Johnny
because you did that math. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, especially because our main characters are like, obviously like facing their version of this problem. Though Franklin can't make the choice for himself, right? They have to like make it for him. I thought that like, you know, Johnny playing the clips, like all these, listen to what it sounds like. All these other places who like you condemned was just all really good and really effective. And then you know, again, you have that like emotion with just the badassery of remembering how powerful the Silver Surfer is, of like, takes 2 seconds to shred every single bridge other than the New York City one. They're gone. They're obliterated in an instant. You're like, the Silver Surfer is dope. And then, yeah, like Johnny moving to that point of sacrifice, like you said, tell Franklin Uncle Johnny loves him, and then boom, he gets to stay and be an uncle.
I thought that moment was like a little unearned. Again, because I would have loved to have seen the Franklin-Johnny relationship or the Sue and Johnny relationship. I'm sacrificing myself for my nephew, who I have not really spent that much time with. But then, like, I was jolted out of that complaint by the Silver Surfer showing up. The time, like, she had just been gone long enough that her return was just sort of like perfectly timed for me to be like, oh yeah, oh great. You know, obviously, yes, this is how a lot of the comics end, but like, it's great to see it. You love to see it. You're like 10 more seconds. Oh no, that's an eternity, but here we go. Okay. We don't have much time left. I want to talk about Franklin
Galactus.
And, well, I don't know. Galactus, he's big, he's hungry. Ralph Ineson is here. I liked him. I liked Ralph Ineson's performance here. But it's still my preference for a Marvel villain is someone I can know a bit better than it is possible to know a Galactus. You know what I mean?
To know a Devourer of Worlds.
Yeah.
A Devourer of Worlds tends to stand at a remove.
What's Galactus like at home?
If you need a herald, it's hard for us to know you. What's Galactus like at home? Oh, man. What's a Galactus like without his elemental converter? It's hard to know.
That's a great question.
I thought that I loved the stretch in space on the ship. I thought that was awesome. I thought the Ralph Ineson's voice and getting to hear that kind of like signature gravelly quality was really great. The eyes, like the effect with the eyes was really cool. I liked that a lot. This idea that Galactus is simultaneously eating planets. Let's just say it. Galactus eats planets.
Sure does.
But also it's like, I'd really like to stop.
I'm so hungry.
I'd really like to stop. Like, I don't even have like a protein bar that I can eat instead. Like, I feel like I'm just in an endless Snickers commercial about how hungry I am.
It's just,
I need this little baby to come replace me so I can just stop. You know, this idea of being like 14 billion years old. I liked when he's like, I was once little like you, you know, a man from the other world. Obviously, like, you know, the comics canon of the Galen of Top, pre-Big Bang and everything. But it's just, I thought that the setup with Galactus, this is kind of classic, like Marvel third act stuff to me, but like, I thought our introduction to Galactus, I mean, first of all, let's just say Galactus is not a cloud in this movie. And so that's just a huge win and a huge improvement. Just really felt great. I thought that the switch from in the ultimate, like the third act, I did like seeing Galactus like kaiju through New York. I thought that was kind of like interesting, but that was where I kind of had a little bit of a hard time turning off my, like, I've got my list of like notes building. First of all, I think like with Reed's plan, though I suspect this will be important in the future, but just like, okay, we couldn't move our Earth. We'll move one Devourer of Worlds instead. We're going to use the baby as bait. It's like, we know that's not going to work. Okay, that'll set up a conflict. Okay. Reed, like, where are we going to send him? To the far edges of the universe. Like, without a ship, he'll be stranded. It's like, Galactus has the power cosmic. He imbues his heralds with some of the power cosmic. The power, like, we just can't overstate the magnitude of the power cosmic. So, like, Galactus kind of going just like, I know a couple people had to help and everything, and Shalabal has to, Sue dies, and then Shalabal has to kind of come and give the final assist, but I'm sort of like, I don't know that Galactus should have gone into that portal at the end of the day.
Can I say the math that I was doing is as Galactus is like destroying New York.
Yeah.
We got an email from a listener, Bridget, who also did not enjoy necessarily a depiction of Sue Storm, but said, also, hot take, perhaps the moral decision was to give the kid over. In real, kids die all the time. Energy from Bridget. When they're like making the idea is we have evacuated everyone to Subterranea. Yeah. So everyone's fine. I really still think there are probably some people in that city. And I really think some of those people probably died. And I really think that
evacuating people to Subterranea when the devourer of worlds is about to walk on the street, I don't know how much good that does you.
I'm very sure that some of Subterranea collapsed. How many people died to keep that baby alive is a question. Now, you might say, we don't trade lives, Captain.
I was going to say.
That's not what we do. But I don't know.
Joanna,
I don't know.
I'm with you. That these are the questions worth asking on the pod, wherever you land. It's our job to ask the questions. One of the least popular takes that Jason and I ever put out into the world during our Bench Mode Marvel Run was hand over vision. Hand over vision.
I don't know. I mean, why not? He dies anyway.
I know, it's very sad. Very sad. You want to talk about Franklin for another minute here? The baby you want to kill?
Give him that baby.
You don't want to kill him. You want to turn him into the devourer of worlds. Which, like, is his destiny.
I feel like it's going there anyway.
It is his destiny.
Give him that baby. Okay. Franklin Richards, Omega level mutant.
Beyond.
Shares the power cosmic. Can bring his mom back from the dead and do a bunch of other shit. Doesn't take over the throne.
Baby hands.
Doesn't take over the throne in the bottomless hunger from Galactus. Mm-hmm. I just want to shout out in this post-credit stinger, which is essentially where we find ourselves. Eric Carle, the Very Hungry Caterpillar, exists in all universes. Love that
book when I was a kid.
1969. So nice. That's when we are. We are in 1969, the post-credit singers. So Very Hungry Caterpillar existed. So does Charles Darwin, which Franklin
loves
conquered
to read
yesterday.
Yeah, he's 4 years old. He's like, next.
And A Fly Went By Mike McClintock is where we land. And I want to mention A Fly Went By because this is a really fascinating book. I don't know how much time you've spent with this book, but this book, which is about a guy who sees a fly, who's being chased by a frog, being chased by a cat, being chased by a dog, being chased by a yada, yada, yada. And it all starts because there's a man with a gun running. And the reason the man with the gun is running is he thinks a monster's chasing him. And it's really just a sheep with a can on his foot making a galumphing noise. So really, we're all running from nothing. But I really I'm just going to read a quick part. The fly ran away in fear of the frog, who ran from the cat, who ran from the dog. The dog ran away in fear of the pig, who ran from the cow. She was so big. The cow ran away from the fox, who ran as fast as he could in fear of the man that heard a thump. And the way he ran, it was just a sheep with an old tin can. But there's this other section where it says, the fly does not know that the frog is not mad. The frog does not know that the cat is not bad. The cat runs in fear of the dog. I can tell if I can stop him, then all will be well. So like this idea of like doom shows up. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what is the nature of doom? We don't quite know yet. There's various versions of doom that we can talk about and think about and speculate as we go towards doomsday. But like, what are the intentions? Like, who is bad here? Who is a real threat here? What are we running from? What are we running towards? The frog does not know that the cat is not bad. Like, is doom so afeared of the potential threat of Franklin Richards that he is here? Does Doom think that Franklin Richards is the anchor being of this universe? You got to watch Deadpool and Wolverine to have a better grasp of that. Are we thinking of Doom in the incorrect light? Should we be thinking of Doom as more of a misguided hero than like an actual villain? Like, what is
He'd like you too.
What is the frog running from? What is the dog running from? What is the fox running from? And who is the sheep with a tin can on its foot? As we go forward inside of this story,
Great transition with the children's book from Very Hungry Caterpillar, like Galactus,
insatiable hunger,
insatiable hunger, and we're all on a journey of evolution
to mutation
the Doom camp. That was really great. Was not at all surprised to see Doom in the Stinger. I'm surprised that it was Downey, I guess, but that's a fun thing to know. I thought,
that's what they're claiming. I really would have just gotten a guy in a hood if we're not going to show the face. Like, why
Franklin,
bother?
like reaching out to touch the face, very interesting. I think okay. So a couple like interesting questions with this mid-credit Stinger. First of all, shout out to the Fantastic Four on their, everybody's fixing up after all that went down with Galactus, and they've done some redecorating.
New carpet?
It looks great.
Yeah.
It looks great in there. Franklin, the mask in the hand, obviously the hood, but also the mask, it's unmistakably Doom, of course. Mm-hmm. Franklin, like, reaching for his face was just such a great little touch for so many different reasons. The empty Latveria seat, one of the interesting questions is like, does this Fantastic Four have a history with Doom?
Right.
Because
we don't know. We don't know what their Victor Von Doom is like. If this is their Victor Von Doom.
Yeah, like,
we don't know.
He was is this 828's, is the Doom of Doomsday, and this Doom and the Stinger, are they the same? I would say so if he's there for Franklin Richards. That seems likely. But is this their Doom? On the one hand, the empty Latveria seat and then his presence makes me think, I mean, maybe the empty Latveria seat is just like a wink to us, but it did make me think like, oh, they have history with him. However,
well, go ahead.
Well, he's like not present in the like, here's our rapid fire rundown of all of their like thwarted
the people
foes.
we're watching. Yeah.
But maybe that just would have felt like a little bit of a like, this is kind of a whimper of a way to like announce Doom, whereas like the Stinger was more effective.
There's an interesting theory that this is not the Doom of 828. Mm-hmm. And that they are going to cast someone else as the Doom of 828 so that when Downey leaves, there can be a Victor Von Doom in 828 for the Fantastic Four to interact with going forward in the films. And they don't want to cast whoever that is. So they're just sort of like, that Victor Von Doom is not here. He wasn't at this, Future Foundation meeting and stuff like that. So he's just like MIA right now. So that we can cast hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com if you have an opinion about who should be the future Doom if it's not Downey, in perpetuity, which it won't be.
Right, for sure. At a certain point, the rate is too much even for Marvel. I think that Doom has come to kidnap Franklin in the comics. That has happened. We won't spoil everything that happens after. Franklin, the powers beyond even an Omega level mutant, the reality warping powers, the molecular manipulation, the ability to create pocket universes, the way that Franklin attracts, because of the sheer might of his abilities, villain after villain, foe after foe. This question of like, I think this is really smart setup for Doom and Doomsday and ultimately Secret Wars. This question of like, is Doom, like, is someone trying to use Franklin to destroy universes? Is Franklin going to be key to restoring universes?
Are we trying to take Franklin out as a threat, use him as a tool?
Right.
Stop him from being a hero, like blah, blah.
Now, a lot of comics canon points us in certain directions there and gives us an indicator. But as you've rightly noted, like the MCU changes that stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. So I think this is like an enticing way to prime people who bring that knowledge to it, but also just people who see this movie and have never read a page of a Franklin Richards comic, but understand he just brought his mom back from the dead, and Galactus was like, I'm the devourer of worlds, but you're the only one who can replace me, and now Doom is here to take him. You're like, kid's really got it. Real 5-star prospect.
You're like an ominous hooded guy with a mask who I don't know who the fuck Doom is here to take him. So anyway, tune in for the Avengers Doomsday to learn more.
In a year and a half?
Question mark. Great question. Okay. We got a jet. We got a motor. Thank you so much. I'm sorry this was a longer, deeper dive into Fantastic Four. We just got a lot going on. We're trying to get as much out to you before I am out of here. But thank you to everyone who worked on this pod. Thank you to Mallory Rubin. Thank you to Carlos Chiriboga. Thank you to Arjuna Ramgopowell. Thank you to Jonathan Frias. Thank you to all of you bad babies. Thank you to the Fantastic Four. We'll be back with Stranger Things Season 2. check in, hopinsanddragons@gmail.com if you have thoughts and feelings you would like to share about that. And some Alien Earth to look forward to and some other fun stuff from Mallory as we go. And we will see you soon. Thank you all. You're the best community we could possibly ever hope for. We'll see you soon. Bye.